What does the United States do for you? Now, if you're a conservative or otherwise a right winger, probably a lot. Things have been going pretty well for the small minority of Americans who are trying to push us back in time. But I have to ask, is this really working anymore? Is the United States really something that we should continue to have faith in? I would say no. And I'll go ahead and head off one of the major arguments that I get against this line of thought, which is you'll change your mind when the Democrats get back into power. Now, I'm much more left-wing than Democrats. I generally view them as feckless cowards who don't do what's necessary. But I'd certainly prefer them to the Republicans because they're not outright fascists. People who attempt to both sides between them are simply incorrect. But the problem is that pretty soon we might not even be able to elect Democrats anymore. Let's take a look at the 2024 election. Already, a case is making its way to the Supreme Court titled Moore v. Harper, which has a very good chance of passing along 5-4 lines. Should this pass, state legislatures will effectively have the power to nullify elections, and there won't be much that citizens can do about it. It seems very likely, I would argue almost certain, that the 2024 election will be contested to the point where a rival government will be installed. Republicans will not accept defeat because of Trump convincing them that the elections were stolen. And we have a Supreme Court, which I refer to as the Council of Six, that continues to just basically impose policies that all of us hate and that none of us want, but that we can't do anything about because Democrats are afraid to expand the Supreme Court. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not working for us anymore. And by us, I mean the silent majority of Americans who support either center-left or outright left-wing social policies. The DAC is too heavily stacked against us. The Senate as an institution is far too institutionally and inherently biased against rural white populations for it to ever properly represent us. And you really can't argue for reform within the confines of the United States because reform would require constitutional amendments, and constitutional amendments require 3/4 of states. That will simply never happen in today's environment. There hasn't been a constitutional amendment since 1992, and that was a pretty meaningless pay congressional amendment. There hasn't truly been a substantial amendment since 1971, when the voting age was lowered to 18, and as has been pointed out, that amendment would probably not pass today because it would be perceived as benefiting Democrats. The United States is broken, people. It can't continue on as it is and still provide for the welfare of the vast majority of its citizens. The General Welfare Clause is defunct. And Democrats can only do so much because of the filibuster. And even without the filibuster, you still have the Supreme Court ruling things unconstitutional. And we have, aging bureaucrats like Nancy Pelosi who just don't really get how bad things have gotten and don't seem to realize that radical solutions are needed. They just think that everything can work within the confines of our system, that, all they need to do in response to the death of Roe v. Wade is just get people to vote Democrat. I think things are too far for that. I think there's a air of real rage and discontent in all of us. We're not happy with the way things are, and if 2024 it goes bad, which it probably will, there's probably going to be a real opportunity to end the United States and replace it with something better. It won't be peaceful. It will probably be bloody. The military will definitely resist, but it will probably be split between the two aforementioned sides. So I think we need to start thinking about what comes next. It's clear to me that the United States' time has come. Its institutions might have been logical and reasonable at some point in history, at least for, the upper classes and the whites, but they simply don't work anymore. They simply don't provide for us. They simply do not give us the recourse that we need. We no longer have the tools to address our problems within the confines of our political system that has been rigged repeatedly in the favor of old white conservatives like Mitch McConnell. So I say it's time to move on. I say it's time to end the United States and replace it with something new. It's time to write a new constitution, and it's time to create something better. Now, I personally am a California nationalist. I support the secession of California. But I also think that there are plenty of you who live in other states who could support your own secessionist movements. Maybe not necessarily for your individual states. New England could be its own region, perhaps with New York as part of it, perhaps as not. New York could even be its own city-state. These are regional associations that would take a long time to work because the economic bonds of the United States are really deep right now. There would be growing pains. There would probably be a lot of resistance. But in the long run, we will be better off without this broken, hollow corpse of a country that we live in now. The United States needs to come to an end. It simply does not work for the vast majority of its people anymore.